Erev Tov. Welcome. Thank you very much. You guys practice a little? You get out of school for this? Anyway. Welcome to everyone. And it's a Kavod Gadol for me to be here, Rishus Rabbanim. And at this time, this is the Sunday night, Ches Shabbat, of course, will be the 15th Yerzeit of Rabbi Nach, Rabbi Rabbi Yosef. And 15 years goes by quickly, but in terms of accomplishments, what the Ilan has done, that we have a Mishnas Menachem, this Ilan, and it's something that I don't think Rabbi Nachum would ever believed, but he'd be very proud. And he would say, if this is what is my legacy, then I've done right. And the Ilan is living his legacy because Rabbi Nachum was an educator. I remember one story of Rabbi Nachum. He believed in education, discipline, doing the hard work, no shortcuts. And he was the head of the graduate doctoral program in Yeshiva University. And a Menahel was taking his doctoral courses through Rabbi Nachum. We all know Rabbi Nachum was a very, very friendly man, sharp as they can. But this Menahel thought Rabbi Nachum would give him a wink, let him pass and get his doctorate. So we called the doctor and let him just slide by. And I remember Rabbi Nachum saying to me, what do I have? I have my chinuch, my learning. This is what I do. And he wants me to take a shortcut. I can't do it. Something is not in me. So when he looks down at the Ilan and he sees what's going on the second floor, and he sees the effort, the work that's being done, it's something that, as being his student, being a son, I just could say one word to the Ilan of Borough Park: thank you. Thank you. Hashem Mishpachat Braya, just thank you. Tonight, I asked my Rav this morning, give me the definition of askanim. What's an askan? What are askanim? Community-minded people. What does it mean? And he said to me, go to the Pasha. Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, he saw a Mitzri hitting a Jew, he got involved. He saw two Jews fighting, he got involved. He saw a burning bush, he got involved. That's an Oscar. You get involved in the community, you see something, you say something, you do something. You're not going to always be matzliach, but you understand what achrayus is. I always remember my father teaching me achrayus, and it was something that you did it because it had to be done, and you did it with, like, the first time I remember it was 35 years ago, and I was asked to be an Avad, and I told my father, and he said, you're going to like this more than any of your basketball games. Okay, he didn't tell the whole truth. I still like my basketball games. But the idea of being able to do something, to make a difference, to be something wrong, do it. What is to be a later? When Moshe Rabbeinu comes in front of the sneh and it's burning, The famous Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Sal nalecha, take off your shoes. Why take off your shoes? You know, you take off your shoes, you walk barefoot, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel the pebbles, the stones. You may even cut your foot. Who knows? So what was the idea? The idea was very simple. If you're going to be a leader, you have to be a leader and feel it. And always understand where you are and what are you doing it for. Very interesting. I was involved in my children's yeshiva. And I was involved in my children's yeshiva. My daughter was in the yeshiva, and she had a tough time in school. And my wife was very concerned. She said, find out who's going to be her teacher next year. Because if we know who the teacher is, we'll see if it's matim for her, if it's going to work out. She had some learning issues. Baruch Hashem now, she's a mother of a number of children. She has a doctorate. But hey, back then, it was a tough struggle. So I found out the teacher was okay. My son, when it came time to him, my wife says to me again, could you find out who David's teacher is going to be? I said, no, I can't. She goes, why not? Because he doesn't need it, but he might have a not bad teacher. Okay, then that's the way it's going to be, and we'll fix the situation. We're part of an Ilan. When it was my daughter who had a problem is one thing. But the reason I'm involved in the yeshiva is not because of my son. It's because someone has arthritis. I remember we had a board meeting, and there was a system in school that if someone wasn't doing something right, he got fined. He actually had to pay $2, $5 for not wearing a tie, for coming late. They had this system. And one of the parents was complaining. How could we do that? How could you have that? It can't be. It's not right. As you know, discipline in a school, in the yeshiva, is the most important thing. If there's no discipline, it's hefkeveld. So, but here's this person who's making this kind of plea, this kind of this big argument. And then I saw, why was he making his argument? Because his son was fined. His son had a son. So he says, and he's a lawyer, he's very connected, he says, and we have to have a committee. I say, fine, we're going to have a committee. We made a committee. He goes, and I want to serve on the committee. He goes, no, you cannot be on the committee. Why not? Because you have a personal endeavor, a personal problem. This is a tzibur. The tzibur has to be done in a way that's transparent, the right way, with no shtiklach, and that they know. We have, in our yeshiva, we give out scholarship, a lot of scholarship, millions of dollars. People can't afford it. Someone said to me, could you check out my scholarship? I said, no. There's a committee. They handle it. If you want me to ask the committee to review your scholarship, I'll ask them to do it again. But I can't step in. No, what do you mean you can't? You're the treasurer. No. There could be no protexia when it comes to something like that. Everyone has to know it's yashar and straight. One of the things that we have beyond from our Rebbe should be his family was taught us, you do things straight with no chachmas. To be involved and to get involved in the Ilan is an achrayus. I tell everybody it's an achrayus to be a biyana chassid. It's a true achrayus. Why? Because we have a Rebbe who learned from his Zayda how to do midos. They used to say, the Moshe Zatzal used to say, you want to learn Midos, go to B'yana Rebbe. So we as B'yana Hasidim, how we act reflects on our Rebbe. I remember the first time that Dovid Schneid, he was 17 years old at the time, he pulls up to Avenue K and East 18th Street. It was the first time he was going to drive the Rebbe from Rebbe Nachum's house. Rebbe Nachum looks at him and says, do you know what you're doing? You're driving Klal Yisrael. You understand your responsibility. I feel here tonight, as we look to become leaders or to tell stories, we have Rabbi Zwiebel who will give us really, he's on the front lines. He's been in the front lines. But what he's going to say is an achrayus of what the tafkid is. And for us as B'yana Hasidim, I feel, because we have a Rebbe, like we have, Ashreinu, Sheyesh Lanu Rebbe Kazeh, but that's an achrayus. It's an achrayus how we act. It's an achrayus how we go. I said this story last time I was here, and it's nice to repeat it. I have a very good friend. He was the managing director of a brokerage house from a Yid, and one of the new recruits, one of the new employees, comes up to him. You may have heard this story before. He comes up to him, and he says, in a very simple question, can I wear a yarmulke, a kippah in work? Simple question. You boys are probably saying, of course you can. Why can't you? Wasn't always so simple. That you'll hear some another time. But he asked this question. You know what my friend answered him? Yes, if you understand the achrayus. How you wear that yarmulke is how people are going to see a frum Jew lives. You don't make jokes. You don't double park your car and block somebody in. You act in a way that a frum Yid is going to be judged. When I was in ninth grade at Hebrew Academy of Nassau County, Hank, out in West Hempstead. And we were going to take a Regents, the test, but we couldn't take it in our yeshiva. We had to go to the public school. So we walked to the public school. The Regents was at 1 o'clock. It was a biology Regents. And they called us down. We thought we were going to have a review on the test. The Rav Nittel, he didn't give us a review. You know what he gave us a review on? How does one act when you're going to walk into a room and you're going to be wearing a yarmulke and they've never seen an Orthodox Jew? That's how you're going to act now. That was the Muslim. Didn't care what grade we get in the bioregions, but how are you going to be seen by the rest of the Ilan? I said it again, I'll say it till you get sick of it. A B'yana Chassid is an achrayus from the example that was set by the Avos before us. So tonight, as we understand the idea of becoming askanim, to be leaders, we get involved, we see a burning bush, we see what's going on there. We have to remember, the achrayus, we never could leave us as who we are. And yes, it's important to get recognition, it's important to do it, but how you're seen is what it's all about. How you act. So, again, I thank you for the opportunity, and we have a number of speakers coming up, and I'd like to start the program. It's Rabbi Zwiebel. I ask Rabbi Zwiebel from the Gudas Yisrael, who has been so kind to give us his time.
Yes, Shekayach. Thank you very much, Mr. Edelsberg, for those beautiful words. And what can I say, a preview of some of the thoughts that I wanted to deliver as well. So Yashkei Chachem, the difference will be that tonight I get to practice my Yiddish a little bit. Ich stamm von Galicianer Yidden. I don't often have the opportunity to speak Yiddish. We'll try tonight a little bit. We're zwischen Chavayim and Gitte Chavayim mit Kennen Adorchaim Yeshen. I grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and the Biyana Klois, the Rebbe Zechreinu Levracha, was a towering figure in that Kufa. And B'chlal, Biyana and Agudas Yisrael is Hein Nach. Das hab ich gehört von Rebbe. Ich bin gewesen bei ihm in Eretz Yisrael. Jedes Mal, was mir bevor kein Eretz Yisrael auf etwas Klal Indien, geht mir ran zum Rebbe. Kann wohl sein Abrucha, aber nicht nur Abrucha. Der Rebbe interessiert sich mamisch in jede Sache, was jeder Prat, was tut sich durch in Amerika, was tut sich mit Agudas Yisrael. Vielleicht zu sagen, by the way, he spoke English to us, he used to say that I have Agudas Yisrael in my blood. In Sitaka, a gewaltiges Chesky, ich gedenk, wenn es du gewesen, mit Joren Zwick, und es gekommen, und es gekommen kann Amerika, als wir so hingegangen, und mit Mamisch zusammen, man verbringt, gibt lange Schuhe, durchreden die in Juni Yatzibur, in Juri Akal. Ich sag, ein Stückel, an Agnes Nefesh, als der Rebbe, der Yankee, der Amerikaner, wenn wollte du gewähnen, stimme die Yoshev Rosh von dem März, das gerade hat du in Amerika. Es wollte gut nicht schlecht gewähnen, es wollte gut gewähnen, eine gute Sache. Aber jetzt, Baruch Hashem, macht seinen Rosh im Kinahora, bei Arzaini Yakdoshu. Ich habe gehabt, das hier als eine von meinen Einekoch, ich habe zwei Bespuches, was war in Eretz Yisrael, eine von meinen Einekoch hat gelernt in der Biyana Chayde, Baruch Hashem, mit gekraselte Pais und alles Ding. I tricked you, right? You wouldn't know that if you look at me. Check my business, okay. But this is for me the gewaltige schos. I'll also depart from my Yiddish presentation for just a moment to say a special Yashikayach to Rabbi Yaniv Meirov, who I think we will be hearing from a little bit later. Is he here, Rabbi Meirov? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, very good. Shkayach. Thank you very much. I don't know if the story of Rabbi Meirov and his community is going to be discussed at great length tonight, but I have to tell you, it's an amazing thing. This is a Yid who comes from the Bukharan community in Queens. We know very little about the Bukharan community here in Borough Park. I hope tonight, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we're going to find out a lot more about the Bukharan community in Queens. These are our brothers, and what is being done with them is a remarkable thing through the work of Rabbi Meirov and his Chaverim, and we're going to hear a little bit about tonight, but I just wanted to say it's a schus. If part of the theme of tonight's program is Klal Yisrael, and our achrayus to the Klal certainly is, there are many different pratim that make up the Klal. One of the Yeda Prat, the Yeda Shevet in Klal Yisrael is a Shevet in Klal Yisrael, was belongs, was geher to Klal Yisrael. Yeda Shevet, every single Shevet has its own responsibility, its own special tchunas hanefesh, its own special role to play, but it's all part of the Klal Yisrael, and that's something which we have to always remember. And Rabbi Meirov and the work that he does with the Bukharan community is something that we should hold very, very precious. Yashikayach, thank you, Rabbi Meirov, for inviting me also here tonight. Rabbi Bestritsky, Yashikayach Chachem, to you, an old chaver from the west side. And Baruch Hashem, here we are together. Meirov Rabbi say, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bozeh. This is touched from the word Arevim. Arevim. Push it, we touch it, Arevim, we are all responsible for one another. Yeah, there's achroi for the other. Kol Yisrael Arevim, especially the girsa is Zeh Loze, so verschiedene Girsoi, Zeh Boze, Zeh Loze. Aber Zeh Loze, wir achroi, eine von der zweite. The zweite touch in Kol Yisrael Arevim, Arevim means mixed together, zusammengemischt. Was heißt? The fate of one Yid is the fate of every Yid. What's geht tun a Yid in ein Chaylik von der Welt, das ist beemes, was gehört zu ihm, Sadna Darachatu, alle Yiden fühlen dasselbe. And Nuchdem Arevim also means Zis. Kikoilech Orev, Marech Nava, Kikoilech Orev, says Zis. Alle Yidden sind in Zis einer auf der Zweite. We love each other. Avas Yisrael. This is the Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. Klalo Prat. Klalo Prat. Wir wollen ein bisschen durchgehen in der Sigge von Klalo Prat, Hand bei Nacht. In seinem jede Yid ist ein Prat, als ein Heilig von der größere Klal, von der größere Zwiebel. Und eine Däume, wir wissen doch, eine Däume, wenn man kommt sich zusammen als ein Zwiebel und man hält sich zusammen, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Right? Each individual Chaylik is a Yuchid in Klal Yisrael, aber die Ganzkeit, der Schleimus von Klal Yisrael wird eine Sache größer, wenn man kommt sich zusammen. Das ist der Indien von Klal und Prat. Aber in derselben Zeit, Chazal so genannt, ein Bechlal Elomashe beprat. Also wenn du Klal und Prat darf man wissen, als der Klal Geher von der Protentake. Rabbi Sher is the Chaim Levrucha. Sehr gewähnt von der Mamische Rosh Verishon von der Askunim in Klal Yisrael und seine Tekifa. Und die Tekifa was aufgebaut teure du in Amerika. Hat gehabt sehr a relationship mit the State Education Department, New York State Education Department. The Tayelas HaYeshivas. Weil Yiddish Yisrael hat eibig verstanden, als man will aufbauen Jiddischkeit in Amerika, darf man bauen Yeshivas. Yeshivas. Das ist gewesen Number One, das ist gewesen Priority Number One, eibig. Als man soll bauen Yeshivas, soll bauen meistens HaTorah. So ein Meirov für dem, man gemiss kennen die verschiedenen Gesetzen du in New York, wie der Rav Zwiebel hat geweint du in New York. Dann soll kennen aufbauen Yeshivas, was Yeshivas sollen sein legal, und was die Yeshivas sollen kennen bekommen verschiedene Programme von der Regierung. Und die alle Sachen, das ist gewesen, eine Sache gearbeitet auf dem, und Baruch Hashem eine Sache aufgetan. And these challenges are still with us today. Man noch als dieselbe Nisyanis und dieselbe Stadlunis, was man darf zu tun mit der Regierungsmenschen. Al-Kapunim, hat gehabt an nunte Chaver, also zu sagen, also man rief Chaverschaft in the State Education Department, the New York State Education Department, was hat geheißen Assistant Commissioner Donald Nolan. Gewesen the Assistant Commissioner, das heißt the number 2 person in the State Education Department, and sein Mikzaya is gewesen higher education. Higher education meint noch High School. In Kedai, als man soll kennen sein, man soll kennen bekommen gelten von der Federal Regierung, von der Federal Government in Washington, zu sein in a post-secondary institution, das heißt noch High School Tage, müssen wir sagen a College, was heißt a College? Eine Sache, als laut der Gesetz von der Stadt, wie man ist, der Gesetz halt versteht, und es ist macher, als das ist Tage a College, also wie es da zu sein, und schon. So wenn es gekommen ist Zeit, als eine neue Mäuse, das sich gewollt auföffnen, es haben gewollt bei Kiemen Tage der Regierungshilfe, was ist available gewesen damals für Yeshivas Gedeiles. Haben sie gemisst bei Kimmen a brief from the New York State Education Department as this is a school which is recognized by the state. So als meistens wird ungeriefen auf Meishe Sher und gesagt, dass wir heute aufmachen eine neue Besmedrisch. Ja, und kannst du schon bekommen von Don Nolan, von Dan Chaver in the State Education Department, the Assistant Commissioner, als ein Brief, was verstetigt, da sind sie a college, was ist recognized, was New York State anerkennt, dass das ist a college. So Rav Sher wollte Poseide ungeriefen sein Chaver Don Nolan und gesagt, sie do a neue Yeshiva, das heißt, the address is do, and ich kenn die Menschen, was sind Achroi auf dem, und sind gibt die Menschen. The next day, Don Nolan hat geschrieben, the brief, was man gedacht zu haben, kedai zu bekommen die Regierungshilfe von der Federal Government. Einmal, sie gewähnt a hearing in the United States Senate, And the hearing was about corruption in the Pell Grant program. The Pell Grant program is the program that was bringt Geld for the colleges in America. In Sigwein Atug was the United States Senate, the Committee on Education, hat gehalten a hearing wegen Skandalen, wegen Sachen, was titzig in jener Programm. In Sigwein Nebuch, ein Heilig von the hearing is given devoted to a College of Judaic Studies. Was hat getan verschiedene Sachen, verschiedene Dreidlich. Es ist nicht gewesen kein größer Kiddush Shem Shamayim. Okay. Al Kalpun, ein paar Wochen später, hat Rav Sherry bekommen ein Telefoncall von einer neuen Yeshiva, was hat sich gewollt öffnen. Man gehört, als hat eine Keshe mit der New York State Education Department, mit Commissioner Nolan, und es darf man haben den Brief, als man kennen, als in Seine anerkennt, als a college do in New York. So Rabbi Scherer called up Assistant Commissioner Nolan. And hat angefangen zu sagen, Don, we have to have a letter. As I excited, hat gesagt, Rabbi, you know I trust you more than anybody else in this world. You have full credibility by me. But we can't continue to do what we used to do. I can't give you the letter. After the hearings on Capitol Hill in the United States Senate and what came out of those hearings, said Commissioner Nolan, and particularly with respect to a School of Judaic Studies, we decided over here in the New York State Education Department that we need certain documentation, and we need to come down to the school for a visitation, and we need to do all kinds of different things. We can no longer just take you by your word. Noch der phone call at mir angerufen zu seinem Office of Scherer, und hat gesagt, Chaim Dovid, nicht Chaim Dovid, das ist ein Galizianer, Scherer gewinnt ein Chaim Dovid Mensch. Chaim Dovid says, die alle Jahren haben so sehr gearbeitet auf dem, als in so einem nach Cheskas Kashrus. Cheskas Kashrus, und Baruch Hashem hat verdient, und Tage, das ist gewesen in sich, Kiloi mi Ribchem, mi Kol Oamim, Choshak Bochem, Haragiru, und Tage, weil man hat eine Reputation, Baruch Hashem, a größer Cheskas Kashrus. Wenn ein Rabbi ist herangekommen, in Bechal, mit Stabelt, this was our secret weapon. The Baruch Hashem, the reputation, the Shem Tov, ist so gehabt. Und jetzt, weil ein School hat gemacht Dreidlich in the Pell Grant program, und sie gewinnt a hearing of Capitol Hill in Meirov, so jetzt do a cloud of chashash. Was jetzt was steht in Zahlen. One bad apple, yeah, as I do in English, one bad apple, but it spoils, it puts a reputation on the entire community. Nicht bedarf zu werden wegen der Scheine Masse auch. Das ist eine litwische Masse, aber von deswegen eine Scheine litwische Masse. The New York State Education Department, ein paar Jahre später, hat gewollt machen eine neue Regulation. Und wenn die neue Regulation wollte rausgekommen, wollte es geschah sehen für chassidische Meisters in New York. Sie haben geredet mit unserer Mayatis Gedalia Teure. Und sie haben uns geheißen, als wir so am Stadel sein, wir warten sein, aber wir schauen sein, die neue Regulation, the new amendment in the state regulation. Ich habe gehabt ein Stück Jachas mit der State Education Commissioner, sie haben immer gewähnt Rick Mills. Ich habe gesagt, wenn nächstes Mal, wenn kommt kann New York City, hätten wir zusammen trinken a cup of coffee together mit als eine Sitzung, mit dem wir durchreden. Nee, sie hat noch gemacht ein Appointment, ist gekommen zu meinem Office, und hat start off, wir gehen nicht bald daran in der Neuse, mit ein bisschen small talk, als ich mir gesagt, thank you, that's helpful. Wir hatten ein bisschen und I gesagt, so Rick, when did you come into town? Came in from Albany. He said, I came in last night. Oh, really? And where do you stay overnight when you come to New York, to the city? I stayed in the Brooklyn Marriott. Really? He says, and you know, he said, I saw something very interesting. I said, what was that? He says, I went down, after I checked into my room, I went down to the lounge to get a drink, whatever, and I looked over at a certain table across the way, and I saw that there was a young man wearing a dark suit, dressed up very nicely, and across the table from him was a young lady, and they were having a very serious conversation. And then I looked at the next table, and there was a young man in a very nice dark suit having a conversation with a young lady. And I looked around the whole room, and there were 6 such tables that this was going on. So I was getting a little nervous now. I said to him, so what did you think of this, Rick? He said, at first I was a little bit taken aback. But then he said, I thought to myself, that's the way it should be. This is the way it should be done. The problems we have in this state with education, with children, the children are growing up without a father, they don't know who their home is, they have broken families, they have all of these kinds of situations. They come into a world, there's no sense of responsibility by their parents, and that's why we have all the problems that we have in this state. A community like yours says, if this is the way you start your families, through such serious conversation and so on, says that's the way it should be done. That's the way it should be done. Rabbi say, in Mishanazan Taka, the regulation was what Gewalt Aros gave, and Machna Pur Chushav Shiniyim was, Baruch Hashem, made a big change and was able to protect, Baruch Hashem, the Chassidish Meises. So it nicht gehabt zu tun mit meinen größten Chochmes oder man legal skills oder die alle anderen Sachen. Es hat zu tun mit einer Sache. Hat gesehen, die poor Bucher und Meirov was gewesen auf a Shidduch date, as I even sagt this, in the Brooklyn Marriott the night before, und es hat gemacht, a Reishim auf ihm, als so darf es Tage zu sein. So darf es Tage zu sein. So, ein Bechlal alle Masche beprat. Jene 6 Pofelke, ich weiß nicht, sie geworden Shidduchim von dem, sie nicht, habe ich nicht keine Ahnung, aber eine Sache weiß ich, ja, als Kiddush Hashem ist es ja gewesen, und es ist Kiddush Hashem, was hat gemacht, manchmal a größer Reishim in Klal Yisrael. Baruch Hashem hat aufgetan gewaltige Sachen. Jeder Mensch, wie jetzt ist so, man kijkt auf ihn, kijkt man auf Klal Yisrael. Ein Bechlal ala Mashe beprat. Also is es. So sometimes when people ask me, Menschen fragen mir, was kann ich tun? Kedai ich soll etwas machen, a contribution für Klal Yisrael, ich kann nicht kein Geld, was soll ich tun? Ich arbeite nicht für das Yisrael, was kann ich tun? Die verschiedene Sachen, was man kann tun, aber die beste Sache, was man kann tun, ist zu sein ein ehrlicher Yid. Sein ein ehrlicher Yid. Ro kalamei ha'oretz kishem Hashem nikro alecha, v'yaro mimeka. If es ist kishem Hashem nikro alecha, damit zahlt man derech Herz, damit ist es v'yaro mimeka. Es man sagt über Amasse, ich habe es gehört, beshem der Balatanya, ich weiß nicht, ist es evans für die Balatanya, ich kann sagen, es ist für den Psa-Andisch, aber ich habe gehört Amasse amul azoi. Als ist gewesen in Tfise, in Matafim macht ein Bilbo und ist gewesen in Tfise. Und hat ungetein sein Talis und Twillen, und jener Tag hat man gemerkt, haben sie aus Talis und Twillen in der Tfise auch. Und hat gedavent, und ist so gestanden, und hat gedavent. Und der Wahl, der Warden von der Jail ist gekommen, und rief aus zu ihm, und says, Yid, da ist Chaim. Aber der Balatanya hat gehalten am Mitteldaven und er darf nicht warten. Und jene schreit auf ihm, und schellt ihm, und verschiedene Sachen. Der Balatanya bleibt mit seiner, und er kommt raus von Shmonesre, und dreht sich Chaim. Und sieht der Warden von der Jail, von der Beis Tfisa, and the warden sagt ihm, und läuft weg, geht weg. Einer von den Chassidim hat das gesehen, ist sie gekommen zu der Rebbe, und hat gefragt, Rebbe, was ist da geschehen? Und der Rebbe gesagt, am Afirische Chazal, Roa Kalamei Oretz Kishem Hashem Nikro Alecha, Eilu Tfilin Shebereish, Chama Charim gedreht, hat gesehen, der Tfilin Shebereish, und mit Meile, wie Yorim Mimeka, so mit Meile gehabt, und ist weggelaufen. Der Chus hat gefragt, aber Rebbe, was arbeitet es nicht bei mir? Ich gehe in der Gas, ungetein Tfilin. Derselbe Chazal, wie Yorim Meirov, auf mir warfen mit Steine, mit Spat und alle Sachen, was doch ein Chazal, darf ich sagen, geht von mir auch. Hat der Rebbe am Geämpft, als du nicht geht gelernt, der Chazal steht nicht Eile Tfilin Sha'al Horoish, steht Eile Tfilin Sha'biroish. So wie der Rambam sagt, als Tfilin, was macht der Reuschum auf den Mensch, also der Mensch soll werden ein besserer Mensch. Wird ein besserer Mensch, wird ein gehobene Mensch, durch dem, was tut und Tfilin. Ob die Tfilin bleiben nur aller Reusch, nicht Bireusch. Ob die Mitzvahs und Maßen Teuben, was Aid tut, ist nur Klappe Chutz, aber es macht nicht kein Reuschen auf einen Befnim, ist, was heißt wie Yorim Meirov, was ist du mehr zu haben. Und wie Yorim Kalam Yoretz Geshem Hashem Nikro Alecha, man nimmt die Tfilin Sha'al Reusch und es macht der Reusch und Bireusch, dann muss Taka wie Yorim Meirov. So haben wir Nacht, tun wir nicht lernen Teure, right? So Nittel Nacht. So ich missbeten mit Chile, weil ich habe mir als jene Maße hat gehabt, ein bisschen Teure in der Sache. Bete ich mit Chile. Aber die Zeit hat Wurm, was ich gewollt herausbringen, ist, als man will etwas tun für die Qualtake, als man will etwas auftun für die Qual, der beste Weg aufzutun für die Qual ist zu sein ein ehrlicher Jid. Das ist number one. Nachdem es ist sehr wichtig, man soll gehen, jeder muss do an election, darf man gehen voting, everybody should be registered to vote, everybody should vote. Wenn man hat eine Gelegenheit zu schreiben, einen Brief, the State Education Department hat ausgegeben, the proposed regulations for your wegen mit der Chol und Yeshivas 140.000 Briefs sind angekommen gegen den von Klal Yisrael, was haben gesagt, dass ins Geheimnis nicht mehr kabel sein, als so Sachen tun nicht sein, als heuer loyia. Es hat gemacht der Reuschem. Jeder Mensch kennt ihn, kann etwas auch tun. Aber die höchste Sache und die beste Sache ist, wenn man arbeitet auf sich allein. Man arbeitet auf der Mitte, man arbeitet, also wie man viel gehört, als wenn Menschen kicken auf ihn, sollen sie sehen, eine Sache, was ist, Taka Doheben, Roa Kalam Yoretz Geshem Hashem Nikro Alecha, et ben Zeiche sein zu wie Yorim Meirov. Yeshakayach, thank you very much.
have a number of questions that we feel the panel could address. And I think the first one is someone that we'd like to ask each to say. And before you say, introduce yourself and tell us something about yourself. The first question is, every leader has a role model. Who is your model in Askanos, and how has he impacted you?
My role model was, first of all, my father, Shon, who was a tremendous Askan, a very, what might be called a pusher, was working hard for Parnasa, and made his whole Terasa in Nasa, he actually made in Nasa, Terasa, he actually made his business was very much about doing chesed. And we grew up in a house that was focused on respecting others. Everything that we did in our house was acceptable, except speaking Lashon Hara, but speaking badly about another, that was unacceptable. That was like the biggest no-no in the house. So, from a chinuch point of view, my parents, Alea Hashem, my father, my mother, I'm Abel right now, I'm Vedas for my mother, Alea Hashem. They were tremendous role models for me. And then in the chinuch world, I had the schia to learn under Chaim who there's a room right here in the Shul. That was also the brother of Mishmutza. He was just an incredible role model about Amunah and Shkufa, Simchas Chaim, and Ahavas Hashem, and Ahavas Yisrael. So, those were my role models.
Okay. Thank you very much. In terms of power, I had an easy answer on that one, and that was the great Rabbi that I had of my Shishar as a friend of Rabbi. Rabbi Sher taught us many things. One of the first lessons I learned from Rabbi Sher came on one of the first days that I started working there. But he came into my office. I had an office there at 5 Beacon Street. Some of you may remember 5 Beacon Street. I was at 5 Beacon Street. I had a room over there. And fancy lawyer like myself, I put up some pictures or whatever. So Sher walks into the room, and he doesn't pay any attention to me whatsoever, but he starts looking at all the pictures on the wall, and he starts straightening them out. And then he turns around and he says, Chaim Dovid, there's one thing that I will not tolerate, it's a crooked picture. And there was a big lesson. That was probably the first time that he very deliberately taught me what the side of what it means to be an asking and to try to accomplish something with Shem Shemayim on behalf of Baruch and his people. So that and many other lessons I learned from my share over the years. So say I'm going to let you go, please.
My name is Ilan Meirov. I am a simple youth from Queens, and if there's a certain person I look up to when it comes to Askanos and where I learned a lot from, generally it would be someone that's older than you, someone that's been around the block. But for me, believe it or not, it's my younger brother Yaniv. He's 7 years younger than me. At the age of 15, I would see how he would run around, just doing simple chesed for people. Running around to see how he could promote Torah, how he could hand out parsha papers, giving out food for the needy. 15 years old, 16 years old. So I was astonished by his behavior and by his desire to do good for Klal Yisrael. And that's what will push me to do what I'm doing. Seeing my younger brother is something that gave me a lot of chizuk, and he's definitely my role model, believe it or not.
Nothing happens by aftervar karai b'mekra. When I was thinking of this question, I had a story that I wanted to say to the younger light here. And Rabbi Chesky, you said Chaim Brim, who's, as you're right, this is a gadol sheba gadol. In other words, So approximately 25 years ago, I was in Kennedy Airport going to Eretz Yisrael for Pesach. And who do I see? I see Reb Chaim Brim with his little satchel. I say to my two sons, both of them are like 10, one was 12 and one was 8. I say, boys, there's Reb Chaim Brim. Go kick his satchel. They run over. My son David is a little bit of a wise guy. You know, Dad, he's like Rabbi Breyer. I go, what do you mean? He's a ground kisser. What? When he gets to Eretz Yisrael, he gets on his knees and he kisses the ground. He goes over, takes his satchel. In the airport, I didn't see, it was one of the most, I would say, very quiet Gevirim you're ever going to meet. Very quiet, very successful, and just a gadol in Torah and gadol in Eretz Yisrael. You may know his name. I'll embarrass him. He's not here. His name is Ruby Shron. Ruby Shron comes over to me in the airport, and this is someone who could have anything he wants. But he says to me, how did you know to chop a ride and grab Reb Chaim Brim's bag? And I said, very simple. B'yana Chasidim stick together. But what impressed me was, what impressed this Ruby Shron. And maybe you'll know him, you'll tell him the story. It's no different because I really don't know him that well. But what impressed me is what was important to him and what he did. Our next question, gentlemen. Got to get back. This is okay. We have a lot of young people here. What will you tell this younger generation to encourage them to get involved in the needs of Klal Yisrael? And we'll start the opposite way now. From our gentleman from Queens. Rabbi Meirov.
To get involved with Klal Yisrael, what would be my words about Chesky? I'll tell you this much. There's two nekudas that would maybe focus on. Number one, the emes is, it can be very intimidating sometimes, depending on what cause you're getting involved with. There's a lot of price, a lot of responsibilities. Many times you do things, you always get criticized. So number one, you have to realize that Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's going to be poured out the sky. You're working for Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're not working to impress people. And the emes is, in the beginning, I myself, because I'm dealing with a lot of interesting cases, a lot of difficult cases, I was actually, at certain points, going to be misyayish. And Baruch Hashem, I had Rabbi that always told me, Ilan, you're not working for anyone besides the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Don't worry about the criticism. If you're working real, you're doing what you have to do, you got to go forward. Because there's so many young Mechayshel that need new, fresh blood to get involved with. So many different matters and concerns. So a person has to realize if you have the Yechayelis, jump into it, have a Rav that's guiding you, you'll see tremendous tzlach. But the one that I think we have to also focus on, I see a lot of my Chaverim also. Just because you are Isaac B'tzar Chetzibur doesn't mean you're puppet from your Achayas at home. It's a major problem I see with a lot of younger generation. They're popular, they're doing so many things in the newspapers, and they're saving the world, but they're destroying the old Shalom Bayis, unfortunately. So you gotta have the proper balance. You gotta realize that Klal Yisrael needs your help, but before Klal Yisrael needs your help, your wife and children need your help too. So I think this is probably the biggest tip I will tell you. Number one is not to be deterred by failure or by criticism. Do what you believe is emes and have the guidance from your Rav. And number two is obviously don't forget you have a family to take care of as well.
Okay. I hope what I say will be a response to the question, but I'd like to offer an observation which I think is correct, and it troubles me sometimes. People say that the young generation is apathetic, they don't really care, they're only interested in themselves, so on, and we care about colleagues, so on. It's not true. Of course, the advice that one has at home are tremendous, and that makes up time, of course. But people care about Klal Yisrael. I think it's truly Klal Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, young people, young generation. Of course, there are generational issues, and there's mistakes and challenges that apply specifically to this generation, more so than previous generations. We had it easier in a certain way. And there are tremendous challenges in this case. But the notion that they're apathetic, that they don't care about the Klal, you see it over and over and over again. So many young people are moving into positions where they are taking the highest for important causes in Klal Yisrael. So I get a lot of chesky out of the younger generation. I get a lot of chesky. I think that Klal Yisrael has a tremendously bright future in terms of its manhigim, in terms of its askanim. You see Kinai Nahar, to look at the Meirov brothers and what they've accomplished. And these are not elderly people. These are Nahar Yimbalai. They're extraordinary pledges. And there are many such. Chazay Hashem, like some people are told about them. So what I would tell a young person is, yes, he is an idealist. Maybe the glacial world out there, they're apathetic, they're materialism, they're wondering who's going to win the baseball game, the football game, and that's on the other. So yes, we are idealists, and take your focus on nefesh, take your energy and enthusiasm and channel them, challenge them to fight, so to blend their Torah, and the Ummah Torah, and this is the way that Hashem that you will be very fulfilled and happy life.
So, one of the things I think is really important is that young people understand that business and Torah and business and Yiddishkeit are not two separate things. There are a lot of people, a lot of Bochum, they go to yeshiva and they think, no, ich komme nicht an Rosh Yeshiva, I'm going to go into business. And they turn their whole focus on the business. And as if business is some kind of separate world. Sometimes I talk to business people and I bring up some idea, I'm talking business. I mean business, as if business is the main thing. And one of the things I talk to young people in Ilan and Bukham is to know that they're in business. There's a voice in there's a minute of shul to talk about that there are many ways that you can avoid. Yes, Shabbatos Ma'ilei Torah, yes, Shabbatos Ma'ilei Avoid and citizens in Torah, but he says out there clearly, yes, Shabbatos Ma'ilei Masim Adam. Zon wasn't the person that gave a dedicated building. Zon was the head of the Shed of Yisrael. His job, his avoided, was with Masim Adam. So what does that have to do with us? So the important part that a lot of people and I'm talking to people that are in business very often, or just young people that are aspiring to be in business, they keep on thinking that Askamas is for people that are Askamas, they're out there, they're special, they want to work for the college. I don't have it in me. It's chemistry. I've talked to a lot of business people that are successful young people. They do deals, they do real estate, and when I come to them, I sit down and I say, what's this for college? So I give a check. I said, no, that's your stupid thing, but what are you doing for college? I should mention it on check. What's your contribution? I said, I can't, I don't have it in me. Some people are built that way. And I sit down with them a lot and I show them what it takes to do a business deal. In order to do a business deal, to get one real estate deal done, what you have to go through in terms of appraisals and legal lawyers and accountants and actuaries and engineers and architects. There's so much that you have to go through. Everything costs so much money, so much chachma. And these guys, people close deals, and I sit down with them and I say, do you know if you would take 10% of your money, but not only money, 10% of your creativity, 10% of your given kaiches, 10% of your chachma, that how you got a deal done, and you point that to Klal Yisrael. Do you know how Klal Yisrael would be helped? The God's Klal Yisrael would be fixed. All problems. There's so much chachma going on today in business. So many dealers and wheelers and buyers and sellers and designers and all that. The goal is everybody to know their machir to be asked and everybody else. And tzeduk is not only their money, tzeduk is of their capabilities. And if you laugh, Buchen and Elton and lot take the field of their capabilities and point it towards Klal Yisrael. They could change anything. And it's not that the Skulim are special. The Skulim are just people that took more time. They just come over here that just focusing on that because they think that's important. And one other big message I have for business people, especially when they talk to me, they say, well, but you're also a business person, you're working so hard, you're an aggressive business person. Yeah, you know something? The Eibusher Master that you need money in order to be able to accomplish things. That's how the world works. So yes, you could be in business and you could work hard for business. And like they said before, to work hard and work straight and to work careless. But then, in the end of the game, in the end of it, you know, what's going to be important? When it comes to Shamayim, you know, and they say, who's this guy? And they say, oh, he's Yankel. What's Yankel? He owns a supermarket or something. Big deal. You know, he owns a building in Minnesota that he worked so hard on that it was unbelievable how much and effort and risk he took. And I tell this thing a lot. You're always so afraid. You know how much risk you take in business? You know, you go into a business deal, you go into a real estate deal, you might not close, you might still deal, you might lose your deposit, and you do it. Take that same amount of risk and point it towards Tzibach and Bucher, towards Almonas, towards Bukhari kids in Queens. That same amount of energy, and you'll be able to change the world. So that's a message to young people, is to just don't look at yourself as incapable. Every person is capable of mamish changing the world. You know why? Because if not, they wouldn't be here this morning. That's my answer. Ze zaten bij de schmoes beginnen de Rabbi en de Sechel, en we horen de Schaap. Dus dat is Rabbi en Nossi. Ik dacht, Rabbi en Nossi heeft geleid in de Eibusher. Rabbi en de Sechel heeft geleid in me. Heeft broken back. And every morning, I suffer from a condition, I like to say, it's called existential angst. I said, so what am I doing here? What's going on to me? What's my job today? But Rabbi and the Sechel means, Eibusher said, you know something today? You got to be there again. There's something for you to do. And then is it just a business deal? It's also a good thing. Make business, you make money, you can do it sometimes. Or is it something else? And then you see something that looks wrong, something that you can help, jump into it, to do it, and you'll have a tzlachim. And that's my guidance and brucha to Ilan and to the young people.
Finally, in all of your work, the three of you are very much involved. And you see a lot of problems, you get a lot of phone calls. What do you see as the number one issue, the front burner issue for Klal Yisrael to attack, go after? So here, Rabbi Zwiebel.
It's very hard to rank the issues. Very hard. But I think the most important thing is we were put on this world to be part of the Messiah, going all the way back to Sinai. And we have to be part of that Messiah. We have to do whatever we can to make sure that our children will be part of that Messiah. And we'll pass the baton along to them and they'll carry it along further. Despite all the messiahs and challenges that exist today, which pull people away from Klal Yisrael and from Yiddishkeit, that's the biggest challenge of all. Maintaining and preserving the status of our children and our future daughters as Erochi and Shemitah mitzvahs, people who create Klal Shemayim. If I have to pick one issue, that's the general issue, which is, in my opinion, the most significant thing we need to worry about. There's, of course, a lot of sub-issues. There's parnasa, and there's housing, and there's shidduch, and there's shalom bias, and there's so many things. But ultimately, the question is, are we fulfilling that foundation mission that we have of being a chelik in the Am HaNivcha, going all the way back to Har Sinai?
Just to add on to what Rabbi Zwiebel just said, I personally am subject to deal with many public school kids, but unfortunately I'm also dealing with a lot of yeshiva kids that go off the derech, from the Chesky community, the Fish community, and the tzad hashav I see with many of these talmidim is that they feel like they didn't make it in Klal Yisrael. They're not going to be too young, they're not the ones that can sit and understand the Gemara Rashi places right away. They don't feel like they're making it, and therefore they feel a little sense of maybe chazal worthlessness. And that's what kind of pushes them off. And their father's proud of this son, he tells everyone about the son of his, and he forgets about the other son of his. So I think we have to maybe make every single child, every single bacher, every single girl feel valuable for whatever it is that they're doing. They're good. You know, not the chas v'shalom say, you know what, the kishon is not where it should be, so I'm not, he's not something that gives me that pride in the family, chas v'shalom. Or in the yeshiva, I say he's not good enough in the classroom. I think one of the kudas is missing is giving that attention and that love for every single child unconditionally. I mean, I'll tell you just a quick story. There were two people from my meeting in Queens. They came to me in their early 20s, mid-20s. And when I heard the story, many of you probably heard it as well, but because we definitely heard about it. But they were both in public school, two Bukhari kids in public school. And they went to a little after-school program. And then a certain Tzaddik, Rabbi Deutscher, put them in yeshiva for a certain kufa. They left yeshiva, and then they went to public school again. But that little spark that Rabbi Deutscher gave them in that time period eventually propelled these two buffers to become Baalei Tshuva. And today, they're running probably the biggest yeshiva with that wall of TorahAnytime.com. It started off because Rabbi Deutscher believed in these two kids in public school. He said, let me give you a chance, he kept fighting and tried getting it back, and tried doing this, tried doing that. Never give up on any neshama. If this is what kids in public school can do, can you imagine what kids in yeshivas can do if you just give them that encouragement, that confidence, not make them feel like they're mechutz l'machane because they're not so, sharp when they're learning. I think this is something we have to all maybe take into account and give every child that feeling of that he's part of the Amin Nifra, like Rabbi Zwiebel was saying, that he's something special. In the Baruch Hashem we've had, there's a close over the past 4 or 5 years, and after we've been Yashivaya, to many Gdol Yisrael, I mean, the Kala Rebbe Shli, the Yom Shlem really was heading this front to help out the Bukhari Kindle in public schools. And then the Sadhu Rebbe's got involved, many other Rabbanim got involved, and we had Rabbi Bishritzky and maybe Chaver got involved, where they gave Chazak the tools to open up more programs for these public school kids. And in his proof of, I think, how long got another rub? 4.5, 5 years since we started the mikvah over there. We put 1,150 kids in yeshivas laying out. But we don't know which one of these kids tomorrow will be the leaders of Klal Yisrael. So I think we have to give every neshama that feeling that he belongs, whether he's a kid from public school or a kid from yeshiva. And I think this is in the Klal Yisrael we really have to work on to see how we could not let anyone fall between the cracks of each other.
It's a tough question to answer. What's the biggest issues out there? I'm a big fan of the Meirov and Queens. And Mamash, a disaster happening right in our neighborhood, and something that can be fixed literally with a couple of dollars. So that's like an incredible thing. I encourage everybody to help support. On the other hand, I'm also very concerned. One of the things that started me off on this quest almost maybe 18 years ago was I come from a chemical. Actually, Chaim was very much guiding. I lived in Ilan, and I did care of Chaim. I sent up some few hundred people to yeshivas. I'm embarrassed with many of them today. They came to my house on Shabbos with cameras, and today they're still sitting in Kauftheil. I'm working. But I started off with that. When I came back to America, and I wanted to work in Kiruv here, and I started looking at what's happening in the Egna kingdom. And what I found was that the Fraya were getting so much infusion of a minna and simplifying connectivity that it was working. Even the kids in Queens getting a lot of that. A lot more than the kids were getting in our yeshivas. Our own yeshivas over here, we're not focusing a lot on the bottom line, on the inside part of the main part of Yiddishkeit. There is the Talian Iktim, the Talian signpost, the one mitzvah of Vegas. And that was missing to a certain part. Again, I'm a businessman. I like to do things that are efficient. I'm looking at things that just doesn't make sense. My kid is going to Cheder, doesn't talk about Cheder, he knows interesting stories about the parsha, and even has a lot of dikdik and mitzvahs, but it's not connected. Like mamish and Vekas, like knowing and feeling simchas Chaim. Also, a lot of the focus was around teaching, trying to teach or pushing our children to love Hashem, love Hashem. But Chaim written told me something very incredible, and I only learned this when I was 18. I never knew an interesting concept. Not only do I have to love Kadosh Baruch Hu, Kadosh Baruch Hu loves me. It's a very interesting thing. I never knew that really until I was older, because you never learned that. Otherwise, the Chum was going to sit down with me. But it was never taught the way, really, the Hafti Eschanom Hashem. This is the Irish says, Al Kil Nichal Dichli. And that before you learn, before you say Shema Yisrael, Hafti Hashem Lekatna, you say before that, Ahava Sodom Hafticha. Abosh Am Yisrael Bahava, the Irish Hafticha. And that's such a difference when children learn that and children don't. So while I was Baruch Hashem doing Askunas and doing a lot of things when I was younger that was Chesed related, I started doing things that was Chinuch related. And Baruch Hashem today we have, Baruch Hashem, many Chinuch organizations that Kauftheil and Yeshivas and girls' schools and Kauftheil, they're based around this thing, that this concept, that the Eibishter Tichli, and that in the red every day about a minute. We talk about a minute because the chizuk that's missing for children today is they know a lot about halachas and mitzvahs, but then they see something that's wrong. And that was actually my answer to what's one of the biggest challenges, of course, is the intelligent and safe use of technology. Because it used to be the important thing is keep kids away from technology. Let's not kid ourselves. Technology is here. The question is, what's an intelligent and safe way to use technology? As Rabbi Meirov said, I partnered up with Hashem with the Kolakov brothers. They used to be in public school. And Baruch Hashem, we built Torah time, which last year had 10 million hours of Torah. 10 million hours of Torah. And again, that's not for everybody, but what we found that so many, especially business people, were going into that already. There wasn't something kosher for them to look at. And so, Baruch Hashem, one of the big things we started focusing a lot on is, as the Dovid said, he's saying that there's not a lot of apathy. At that point, we found apathy, not in a way of doing chesed, but it has some bonus. Like, Azoi is this. What do you want? Azoi is this. We're in 2022 or 2021. Happens from China. And it's years. So I said that last week, by Shabbat told this now. And said, one of the shortum on that, from being cycle, from being miyayish, from being resigned, from being like, what are you trying to change it? That's one of the goals that the brothers take us out of. Not to be accepting what it is. That being a man here could look at himself and saying, I'm supposed to be, I'm Kurdish. Kadosh and Tiyah, Kadosh Chaim. Why? Because what it says is doesn't have it. It's not doesn't have it. Because the Irish have it. I don't think I'm supposed to know. It's the Irish. No. The Irish have the kind of mouth. Talking about this, we made an entire Talmud Torah called Nach Hashem. I don't know if you know about Hashem Talmud Torah. Well, Nach Hashem, we started in my office, 14 little kids. They have 700 kids coming out. That the whole issue is built around this. So the kids should be the simcha. What they're doing here, what their job is over here, and not to just go through the stages of getting through Chayim, knowing just knowing what they're learning. They should also know what their job is over here. I think that's a Choy Kodesh and Glad, that are learning Choy. People, especially, people, I'm talking about school, I think there are few people working. People are sitting in Choy and getting paid by the community. I always say to them, what are you doing back in the community? Not sure I have a Choy myself. A lot of Choy come to me to collect money. I give them what I can. I said, but what is the Choy doing back in the community? I said, Mr. Shah, they're learning with kinder Nach. You don't need kinder neither. There's a Rebbe in Yeshiva that have 30 kids in the class. The Rebbe is underpaid. He's paid late, if he's ever paid. And then he has to be a teacher in the afternoon. And then he's a tutor at night. And he has 30 kids, and they came to the school against the thing of internet and the street and all the mishnas that are going on there. So what's needed is you go out to be big brothers, to be the chesed strong. Don't take money. Every man can give 3 hours a week, 2 hours a week. Or like Meirov said, there could be an asking in the house, right? Not to leave the house as a third choice, and come, be asking the wives that are working hard, and also working for or something. So there's a lot to do, and I always say to people, and that there are 4 kinds of people in the world. Some people don't see any problems. The fact that Chaim has the house to get on the down and live. That's one kind of person. There's another kind of person that says, it's terrible. The rabbis, the teachers, the parents, the internet, everything is just a disaster. That's all, just complaining about it. Then there are other people that say, Medafat esteem, that's it, Medafat esteem. And I always ask them, who's Ma? Who's Medafat esteem? How do you spell Ma? It's M-E, maybe me? Did you have to do something? So I said, if you're one of these 3 people, I'm really not interested, because I know the problems, I have more ideas than you, I have a whole pack of things that didn't do yet, a bucket list. But then there's the 4th kind of person that says, I want to do something. I have an idea. I tell them, if you're that person, I'll give you my personal number. Call me. I'll try to help you. I'd love to help you. So if anybody here, I'm telling you the same offer here. If you're a person that wants to do something, that doesn't want to complain, and has an idea, and wants to roll up his sleeves, and shit a little bit, do something call me. Come to me after we talk here, and I'll try to see if we can do something.
I thank you all. I think we should have one last story from our own Brianna Rebbe Zatzal. This is 1947. Some of you might know this, but it's good repeating. The year is 1947. The Satmar Rebbe coming from Europe, and he's spending the first Shabbos, and he comes to Brianna Rebbe Zatzal for a bracha. He comes to the Lower East Side, 247 East Broadway. You heard the story at all? Okay. The Satmar Rebbe comes in and he says to the Brianna Rebbe, everything is going to be like the Chaim. I'm doing everything like the Chaim. The Brianna Rebbe says to him, impossible. Efshar. You can't do it. No. I'm doing it. Give me a bracha. The Rebbe says you can't do it. Gives him a bracha, goes on his way. The next day, he calls in Rabbi Yisrael, Lava Shalom. He says to his son, Rabbi Yisrael, gives him an envelope full of cash, $2,000, and says to him, take this envelope to the Satmar Rebbe. Rabbi Yisrael looks at him and says, I don't get it. Yesterday you were so against this idea, and today you want to give him money? And I have one more question for you. Where'd you get $2,000 from? We don't have that kind of money. The Rebbe looks at him and says, I came in 1928. I also said, I want everything like the Chaim. But I saw it was impossible. I couldn't do it. But I knew one day someone's going to come, I'm going to meet him, and he's going to be able to do it. I met that person yesterday. I've been saving $5, $10 every week so that I have the money to give to the person who I knew could do the job, take it to the Satmar Rebbe. The idea of the story is, Chesky was saying, be prepared, but recognize when you're someone who's bandwagon, you can get on and really be matzliach with him. Recognize greatness, as our Rebbe did. And don't get into egos, he's crazy, he's that. But understand the mensch. Thank you. Good night.